Okay. Hey, I wanted to dedicate Shiur in the blessed memory of Shmuel Alevi Segal, who's a Talmud and Bavakesh, say absolute genius. And Shmos Hatzmo Divitega, Yehi Zichro Baruch. Mitzvah Reish Vov, a mitzvah Sheish Mosayim, Hi Shetzivonu Lahov Kitzosenu Es Kitzosenu. Now, this expression, I think I pointed out last week, is found in many places, and it's just the way they translate the Arabic means zer lezer, means one Jew to another Jew. Kmo shenahav atzmeinu. Okay. Kmo shenav atzmeinu. Now, I think over here, a suggestion, okay? Now, I think I was told this. Let me read it, and then I'll explain to you what I'm bothered by. Shivaro lavat kitsenes kasenu, kamo shenav atzmeinu, ushetiye chemlosi ve'avosi le'ochi chemlosi ve'avosi le'atzmi. V'mone begufoy, v'chol ma sheyiye b'shusi b'shusay oish yirtza oisay. Okay, now, the question that one should ask is this vav over here, usheniya, are the two, is it a vav hamachaber, as we normally learn, a vav of and? So it means you would read it then, shisivono love at katsena es katsasenu, kamoshenev atzmenu, we have to love, and of and beyond that, usheniya chemlosi ve'avosi leochi ke chemlosi ve'avosi le'atzmi b'mona begufa. So I think that's incorrect. And my impression is it's such a vav, at least in the Arabic, where it's a introduction to an explanation. And we'll go, I just want to tell you how to read it, and then I'll explain to you how this all works and why it works like this. That for some reason, we can't interpret the ahava in the literal sense. And the Ram is explaining how we do interpret it. How do we interpret Shetiya chemlosi ve'avosi liochi, my chemlo and avo to my brother, that's the ochi b'Torah mitzvahs, should be like the way that I b'chemlosi ve'avosi le'atzmi mona begufa v'chol ma she'yiyeh b'rishusay or yirtzay. So whatever he has, or whatever I would want to have, I should want for him. And as it continues, wherever he has, I should want him to have, and okay, and that for myself. And the opposite, Sheyidbak be esne lo kamo. Who yisale, you'll have to kamo. Now let's start slowly. We're going to see that there are many aspects to this mitzvah of ואהבת לרעך כמוך. Not only in Chazal, but also reflected in the Sefer Rambam. Now, in order to understand this and this mitzvah, we're going to try to bring certain different Chazal and explain them and in the frame of reference of the Rambam in Sefer HaMitzvos and the Rambam in Mishnah Torah. So let's continue. Let's start. Here in the Minyan HaMitzvos, the Rambam clearly says that the mitzvah is to want for your fellow Jew what you'd want for yourself, as far as monetary success and health or whatever, and you should want that these Ritzonos should be mekuyim, that they should be fulfilled. And what happens is that the mitzvah of ahav or laahv is not as we normally interpret love, but it's interpreted as it's a way that man looks on his fellow man. Now, I don't want to get involved in this, but I just want to point out something about the Hebrew language as opposed to English and maybe other language, that the word like and love in the Hebrew is the same. So we never actually know when we say ואהבת לרעך כמוך, whether it means you should like him as like yourself, or you should love him as you love yourself. But I'm not sure if that's material one way or the other, because whatever it is over here, the mitzvah is not about loving, but the mitzvah is about wanting for myself what I wanting for my friend what I'd want for myself. Now, this sounds very odd. Why take a word in the Torah and interpret it in a way which seems a priori against what the word seems to say? Now, that l'chayra is the first thing we have to deal with, and the answer to this is that many of the interpreters of Tanakh, starting with the Ramban and including the Malbim and the Tziv, that they point out that the mitzvah is v'ohavto lira'ach kamocha and not v'ohavto es re'ach kamocha. And if it would have been es re'ach kamocha, then there would have been a mitzvah to love each and every individual Jew. And in the way we interpret the word love. And the truth is, it's difficult to imagine that there should have been a mitzvah to have the emotion of love to each individual person, because everyone has their own particular personality and everyone's different, and different people interact or mischaber in the with the different people better than others. So to say that one should love everyone is a tall order, and the Maisa is the Torah never said it, because the mitzvah is ve'ahavta l'ra'ach kamocha, and that's the Meforshim say that the mitzvah is to want those things that I'd want for myself. I should want others to have. So then the mitzvah is that it's a state of mind that I want for others what I want for myself. And excuse me, you don't got to do nothing. You just have to have the state of mind this is what they call in Yiddish, fagin, to not be envious and to give, to let the person, he had his success, let him have it. Don't try to take it away from him. Now, the opposite of ve'ahavta is that the rotzain shazulas lo yatzliach kemוך in monetary issues and other gutzonos. And l'cheira, and the opposite, which is steer to the mitzvah, is a problem. And that's what the Ram says when he says mitzvah lav koach of Yisrael, but he says v'hamischabed koach chaverin lo cheler olamabo. He quotes it with the mitzvah after because that's also a steer to the mitzvah abo. It's to want for him the opposite of what I want for myself. I want iatzlocha for him. Now, the Rambam, in another place, this would in Sefer Mitzvos, in Shiur Tes, says v'chein tzivonu lisnaig b'mida me'amidos kamo mashe tzivonu b'chemlo v'achmonus v'atztoka v'achesed or kubitzididus, depending on how you translate it. V'omrei v'after la'ach kamoicha. The Rambam there clearly takes the position that the mitzvah, this mitzvah is based on the midah of chemel and rachmonus, and the way one is mekayim the mitzvah is to use these midas and incorporate them, and to say the same way I'd want for myself through chemel and rachmonus, I want for my zulas. And that is the mitzvah. The mitzvah is to incorporate these midas into your mindset when you think and when you think about other people. So, and the Rambam doesn't say anything about pulas, both over here and in Shiur Tes. And the mitzvah is a mitzvah of what you would call deis in Mishnah Torah. Or midas, the way he talks about in Sefer Mitzvos. But it's a mitzvah about the midas, using the midas in the proper way in your interpersonal relationships, in the way you view other people. Again, there's no mention of any pula over here in this mitzvah over here in Reish Vov and in a Shiur Tes. The Ramban, and we'll read the Ramban in Mitzvah Shem, I hope to come to it later. The Ramban clearly talks about the mitzvah as being what I want, to fagin. The Ramban talks about fagin, that Yonason was to fagin David, that he got malchus. Fagin, because this is what he wants for himself, he wants it for his friend. Now, in Mishnah Torah, the Rambam brings ma'asim which are interrelated, are connected to this mitzvah. The first place he brings it is Hilchos Deis, and he says that the mitzvah is mechayiv amira l'saper b'shvochay, And what he's saying is that the mitzvah is mechayiv, that the midah should express itself in a pula. The Ram in Hilchos Deis, Peg Vav Halacha Gimel Mitzvah Kolom Leov Es Kol Echod VeEchad MiYisrael Kegufay Shenemar VeAhבת לרעך כמוך Lefikoch Tzorach L'Saper B'Shvochay. Also, in the second example, the Ram in Hilchos Avel says that Bikkur Cholim and Nichem Avelim Abuchal the Mitzvah. Bikkur Cholim, you go and you visit the Cholim, you b'shamish the Cholim, and Nichem Avelim, you try to menachem. You go to them and you menachem them. Ram in Hilchos Avel, in Perik Yudalid, Halacha Aleph Mitzvah Sei Shel Devreim Levak Cholim B'Chulei B'Chulei, and then to do all these different things. Afal pi shekol mitzvos elu midivreim hareim b'chal ve'ahavta lira'cha kamocha kol advorim she'ata roitze sheyasu oisom l'cho acherim aseh ato oison leochicho b'seiro u'b'mitzvos. So it's very clear. The Ram and Mishnah Torah, both in Hilchos Deis of the Saper B'Shvochay and in Hilchos Avel, has an element of pu'ula, of doing something or speaking or doing something, not just midas. The emes this is what he does in Mishnah Torah, does express itself in Sefer Mitzvas, but not over here in Reish Vav, and not in Shorish Chi, but in Shorish Beis. The Rambam in Shorish Beis, when he's talking about Bikkur Cholim and Nichem Avelim, ki ha'pu'ulos ha'elu kulam v'adoimim lehem nichnosos tachas mitzvah achas michlal hamitzvos haksuvos b'Torah bebeyo v'amrei yis'ale v'ahavta lira'cha kamocha. So it's very clear the pulos go into the mitzvah v'ahavta lira'cha kamocha. So this becomes very confusing, and it's not only a problem in Mishnah Torah, it's a problem in Sefer Mitzvos, because even though it isn't mentioned over here and it shows Chi, Lamaisi mentions it in Shorish Sheni. Just an aside, in order to understand this concept, what exactly it means. So Rebbe used to say, and I just talk about this Rambam itself, just as an isolated phenomenon. We'll see more about it as we go on. He used to say the Rambam in Hilchos Avel a priori is an internal stira. In the beginning, he says it's the Rabbanon. The end, he says it's the Raisa. So what is it? And you can do the same in Shorish Beis. So Rebbe said, very simply, that each pula as a separate entity is the Rabbanon, but the kiyum of all of them is the mitzvah after lira'cha kamocha that I do, but the particular act is a separate mitzvah Rabbanon. But to act on behalf of my friend is Torah mitzvahs is b'chal after lira'cha kamocha. The kiyum. So one should ask, since the Rambam himself in Sefer Mitzvos has the same principle, that is an element of pu'ula in this mitzvah, so why did the Rambam set up this mitzvah in Shorish Tes as midas, and why over here in the mitzvah, he doesn't mention anything about pulos, and he seems also to limit it to midas. So the what we're suggesting is the following: that there are two elements to this mitzvah, and we'll see about them more. There's a chiyuv, and the chiyuv is only midah. I have to want for every single Jew, and it's an obligation on me to want for every single Jew the best, the same way I'd want for myself. However, there's a mitzvah, as my Rebbe was said, the mitzvah kiyumis, to be part of, in certain circumstances or occurrences in life, to share with my fellow man these occurrences, whether it's the depths of despair at the time of Nichum Avelim, Bikachilim, when the person is sick, and to feel and show empathy with him, or it's when the Chosim Kala, when the point of ecstasy, there's a mitzvah pula to share with him. But that's a kiyum. I don't have to go to every single wedding. I don't have to go to every single Bikul Cholim. I don't have to go to every single Nichum Avelim. But on the other hand, I certainly have to, as we said before, every single, I have to, can I ask you, in other words, can I say, this Jew I want to be successful, and this Jew I don't? I can't do that. Any single Jew that I have in my mind, I should want to be successful. So there are chiyuvim and kiyuvim. Taking it a step further, I would suggest that the mitzvah chiyuvis is the ikar mitzvah. And that's where we learn pshat in the Torah, ואהבת לרעך כמוך, that it's לרעך, and it's my ritzonos, and it's midas. And the Rambam, in defining the mitzvah, here in Reish Vav, and in Shurish Chi, is a mitzvah of midas, and it's only midas, no pula. However, we learn out from a drasha, and maybe it's a drasha, because the Rambam has a drasha in Hilchos Ovel, Harehein b'chlal ve'ahavta lira'ach kamocha, kol hadvorim she'ata roitze she'yasu oison l'cho acherim. That's where in terms of after Achmoch, Aseh ato oison le'ochicha b'Torah mitzvahs. The Rambam l'chayos in drasha interpreting the pasuk. So if you're ready to accept it's only a drasha, so we know in general that we know in general that there are the drashas are not the ikar mitzvah, and as the Rambam writes, and he goes out of his way, both in Mishnah Torah, in Hilchos Ovel and Perek Yudalid, and in Shurish Beis, he says it's only b'chlal the mitzvah after Lira'ach Kamocha. And the Ram uses this word b'chlal in many cases, and the assumption is that it's not the Ika mitzvah. The Rama, for example, the Ram says in the Ika mitzvah you get malchus, and a drosh you don't get malchus. In Loisase Kufayin Tes, that there's you get malchus for Sheretz Hamayim, and Drovim Nimosim, which is the opinion in Sefer HaMitzvos, the Reisa, you don't get malchus, it's the drosha. And that's why, again, the Ram says it's b'chlal. So the Ram over here, sometimes the Ram does mention b'chlal when he's talking minyan mitzvahs, like he talks about the Simchas Yontif, not only the Yontif of Chagiga, not only Simchas of Chagiga, but Dovar Goylo, he mentions Mitzvah Simcha, but he's not obligated to mention these drushes in minyan mitzvahs, where his main interest is just to tell you what the mitzvah is. So therefore, here he doesn't talk about the pula, and he doesn't talk about it in Shurish Test, where Shurish Test is defined in the Ika mitzvah. Now, also, the word lefikoch that the Ram uses is a very interesting word. And it's a discussion itself. I'm going to give you the Ma'amakemis, and I urge you to review each one individually. The Ram says here, in Mishnah in Hilchos Deis, in Perek Vav Halacha Gimel, he says, Mitzvah kol adam, laahod es kol echad v'echad miYisrael kegufay, shenem v'after la'ach kamoicha. Lefikoch. It's a very odd thing, the fikoch. Fikoch, tzorach l'saper b'shvoch. Now, the Rambam, the proof that the Rambam b'derech klal uses the word lefikoch, that it's not the Ika mitzvah, but it's a tachbula, how one fulfills the mitzvah. But it's not the Ika mitzvah. Now, I just tell you, I give you Ma'amakemis, and I think it's beyond the proof. I don't think I should be working on doing this now, but you can look in Hilchos Deis, Perek Aleph Halacha Vav, Hilchos Deis, Perek Dal Halacha Aleph, Hilchos Deis, Perek Vav Halacha Aleph, and Hilchos Tshuva, Perek Yud Halacha Vav. So then it should come out that the Sapir B'Shvocho Shechaveiroi is not the Ika mitzvah, and the Ika mitzvah is the Chlamidis. This might be supported, and you should check this out and think about it, that the Rambam in Pirush Mishnayis, in Ovis, in Perek Aleph, Mishnah Tes Zayin, you don't get the impression that Dibur B'Shvochei Shel Chaveiroi is a Dibur Shel Mitzvah. And, you have to look at it with a Dibur of, you see exactly those Diburim, but he talks about the Sapir of Shvochel Tzadikim, but he's talking about Midas, and I think Mishum fits in the second category. Look over there and think about it. But if I thought the way to Mekayim the mitzvah is the Sapir Shvochel Veil, then it's a whole different world. The question one could ask still is, why doesn't the Ram quote the Sapir B'Shvochel Shechaveil and Hilchos Ovel with Bikul Cholim? Because all of them are Pulois or Dibur or Pulois something, and it's a Kiyum V'After. So this is not so bad, because the Ram is talking in Hilchos Ovel about where the Rabbanan made separate takonos, the Rabbanan each pool with Devreim, mitzvah say with Devreim, do this, do this, do this. There's no separate mitzvah say with Devreim of a Sapa B'Shvocha. That is Kiyum in V'after La'ach K'moich. One could ask in the opposite way, why didn't the Rambam here in Hilchos Deis, where he's talking about the mitzvah of after Achamoicha, why doesn't he quote this cloud that after Achamoicha, for Advorim Shataroitze Shiasu Oisom Lecho, Acherim Aseh Ato, or Chichotem Mitzvas? So I'm not sure also how bad that is, because the Rambam sometimes quotes the mitzvah, which is not necessarily a mitzvah, in a whole different context and not necessarily together with the mitzvah. For example, the mitzvah of Simchas Yontif of Chagiga, which is the mitzvah was Chagiga. The mitzvah of Simchas Yontif, which is Kol Echo B'Loiloi, is not mentioned in Hilchos Chagiga. It's mentioned in Hilchos Yontif. Now, to add one more thing here, there is a very interesting idea. You just have to decide what you want to do with it. There's a Rambam in Hilchos Matnas Aniyim in Perek Ches Halacha Yud. Hama'alim v'hama'alim einov me pidyoinoi hari ze oive aloi sametz es lovovcho v'loi sikvoitz es yodcho v'loi samud v'al loi samud adam v'echo v'al lo yirdenu b'forech leinecho u'bitu mitzvus posoech tiftach es yodecho loi u'mitzvah chayach chichi and I saw mitzvahs ואהבת לרעך כמוך. So it means that a person who is not paid the shvuim is mevatel the mitzvah ואהבת לרעך כמוך. So pidyon shvuim l'chayra is a pula. It's like called voim shataroitze. It's like those things in Uchas. So one could ask why the Ram doesn't quote in Uchas. So I'm not sure. Is there separate Rabbanon Pidyon Shvuyim? I would assume. I don't even know that there is. Maybe there isn't. And maybe you see, it's a very odd thing. See, we said, and this is just food for thought. I don't really want to get onto it any more than this, but I think it's certainly interesting. And we said that I don't have to go to every chasana. I don't have to go to every bikkur cholim. I have to go to every nichum avelim. But every pidyon shvuyim which presents itself to me, it seems very clear in the Ram that I have to be involved in it. Because he says that if he doesn't do his bittul mitzvah pasach tiftach, it's like stalker. Mitzvah chayach chichimoch ve'after kamoich. So this also has to be thought about. Why is there an obligation over here, and what does all this mean? Next. Now, there are other there are other aspects of this mitzvah. The Sefer in Kedoshim in Parsha Beis, Perek Dalet Al Chiyud Beis, ואהבת לרעך כמוך, רבי עקיבא אומר, זה כלל גודל בתורה. Somehow it's kosher to call it Torah Kula. Gemara in Shabbos, Lamed Aleph, Lamed Aleph, Omeloi Girani, Girani, Almanas, Shetil Talmideini call it Torah Kula, Kshani Oimer al Regel Achas, Doch Voi B'Amas Abinyan, Shebiyodoi, Bolov Nehilel, Gaire, Omeloi, the Alech Sane, the Chavoch Loi Sabe, Zuhi Kotoku. Also in Gracious Rabo, in Parsha Chov Dalet, Simen Zayin, Rabbi Kiva Oimer, after the Achmur, the Klagol Bateu, Shalei Toima. Okay. Next. You find maybe the issue of Cloud Godel is that you define many Inyoni Atela based on this. For example, we learn from after Achmoicha Brolo Misa Yofe. We learn what is the Mrs. Bezin of Sefer and Skila. And Lekvoya and Misa Kalo, because of after Achmoicha. Shemashi Yisi Leitze. That's what I would want for myself. But the question is this that I have to love, or because I love the person's Chai Mrs. Bezin? Is the Chalasha. The Achrein Mesor talk about this. So the question is this a question, not a question? Maybe it's not a question that I love him personally. It's the general idea that I want him mechabit kol adam, even a Russia. We have to think about this, and this needs work. The Ram Pirush Mishnah is, he says, Vosinu, he says, Lefisha Sreifas Pnimis Aguf Nikla Sreifa. In Perik, in Hilchos Sanhedrin, in the Mishnayos in Sanhedrin, Perik Zayin Mishnah Beis. Vehemo Yisol from Be'eve Mutach. Lefisha Sreifa Pnimius Aguf Nikla Sreifa. The Sreifa, the inn is also called Sreifa. Versinu as Zeh Chemla al Ha'odam. Odom, I assume it's mankind, humans. It's not this particular person. Chemla al ha'odom mipnei shezeh mamaya es misasai. Omar Hashem v'after achmoich v'shem she'odom in nischaye miso or yeboiche la'atzmo yamovis achi kal v'asher inuye pochos mikach kach nase lozosein. This is the question, is it there? Is it the really after Achmoicho? It's a question of cover to them, and this I think should be thought about. Okay, next. Next. The Ramban, and this is mamish a big chiddush, and that even though it's not, I'm not mentioning every Ramban's about a Rambam, is a big chiddush over here. The Ramban says that this mitzvah ואהבת לרעך כמוך is mechayiv ahavas nefesh. Kmo, as Yonason was someach ba'atzlochas David, and it says, let's see the Ramban in Vayikra Yutes Yud Zayin. V'yitzave hakosu shelo tia chisas hakino azis boy. The Torah is telling you, is legislating against kina. Kina is a steer to the mitzvah after lach k'moich. It's called fagin. Avo yov b'rabo isatevo lechaveiro kasher odem oisel nafshe. V'lo yitain shiur b'avo. It should be uncapped. It should be overflowing. V'alkein omer b'yoneson ki avas nafshay ahevoy. And that is required for everyone. The Ramban is defining the mitzvah. Ba'avur shehesim midas hakinim eliboy. V'omo v'atu timloch al Yisrael. It's an amazing thing. But the domina kina and avo is a steer. Kina is a steer to the mitzvah of avo. And you have to have avas nefesh to everyone. Now, just another thing. This, I just want to suggest something. It's very difficult to read over here, where it says, Kechemlosi ushetiya, as I said, it's an explanation. Chemlosi v'avosi li'ochi, chemlosi v'avosi l'atzmi, b'moyna v'gufay. B'chol ma sheyirtze b'shusay, o yirtze oisay. V'chol I would just, this sentence is very odd. I'll tell you what I mean. Yeah. Kol ma sheyeh b'rshusay o yirtzeloi. Yirtzeloi, or some say, b'chol ma sheyesh loi oishu chofetz. This, it's not something new. This is an explanation more to go. B'chol ma sheyeh b'rshusay o yirtzeloi. That's b'mamoinai. That's explaining what it is. It's not something new. So it's like it's a parenthetical remark. And then he goes beyond. Okay, now go on. The v'chol ma she'esna le'atzmi o lemi sheyidbak bi esna lo kamo. Yis'aleh ve'ahavta lir'ach kemוך. So it's also in the opposite way, and this is what the Gemara Shabbos is, the Oma, in the Gemara, the Makol for this, the Gemara Shabbos, Laman Aleph, and Aleph, Oma loy dialoch, Sonei, lechavach leisavid. Zu hi kol ater kula. Okay, you see. Now, next. So I think that basically wraps up what I'd like to say over here in Mitzvah Reish Vav. Now, let's try to do a little bit of Mitzvah Reish Zayin. Mitzvah Asheva u'Mosayin each devono laahv es hagerim. V'omar lis'aleh v'aftem es hager. Now, what I'd like to just tell you, when you look at this, it's very interesting. The Rambam basically goes about telling you that that everyone who is yes, Havas Hager is also included the V'ahavta lir'ach kemוך. It's all very nice. Okay, we'll see. We'll get to it. It won't. We'll skip. We'll see. But the important thing over here is, which is an interesting observation, the Ram doesn't mention over here at all. Maybe I'm missing it. Okay, he doesn't talk about whatever I want for myself, I want for the ger. The whole discussion which he had and the basis of Mitzvah Reish Vav, he doesn't really discuss here. And you'll see later at the end of the mitzvah, he compares the mitzvah with Avos Hashem. And on the opposite end, one a priori looking at this before he starts defining and sitting and thinking about the mitzvah should ask himself a question: should Avos Hager be a separate mitzvah? It's a separate aberration of how the mitzvah V'ahavta lir'ach kemוך applies. He's a chicham Torah mitzvahs, so maybe there shouldn't have been a separate mitzvah b'chlal. Truth is, I'm not sure if we know that Avos Hager is a separate mitzvah. Mitzvahs, the Ram says it. I don't know if there's a raya per se about it. And the Ram himself seems to be asking the question because Af al pi shu nichnas b'zeh im Yisrael b'yomo v'ahavta lir'ach kemוך. What's Af al pi? What's Af al pi? Af al pi is an assumed question. And it's an answer. No, it's a separate mitzvah. And you would have said it's only nichbal l'chizuk to tell you that in a ger, it's more chomo. As the Ram says in Shorish Chi, that mitzvahs which are nichbal, again, and not separate mitzvahs, they are they're not separate mitzvahs, but it's just to show the chayzik inyan. Then the question is, how does the Rambam answer this question? So the Rambam basically says, he says, "Chesif hokel ahavo v'yichid loy mitzvah neisefes." What does it mean? Chesif hokel ahavo. So the Rambam seems to be saying that Ahavas Hager is a separate mitzvah because there's a Tesefes Ahava which you don't have in a Stam Jew. was an amazing thing. And therefore it's a separate mitzvah. And then the Rambam adds on even more. Ubereva medroshois be'aru she'akel tzivonu al hager kamo she'tzivonu al atzmoi yis'ale v'omer v'after eis Hashem Elokecho v'omer v'after mesager. So he seems to be saying that this separate mitzvah stems from the fact that there's some common denominator between loving God and loving a ger, which seems to say it's almost an impossible thing. That how is it possible to say that you love a ger like you love God? The mitzvah of Avos Hashem is different. It's cholok be'etzem yisei dinai from stam avos ben odom. And you look at mitzvah gimel, mitzvah say gimel, and you see it very clearly. So what in the world could the Rambam have in mind? We said before that the mitzvah of lira'ach kemוך is not to love the fellow Jew, but to want for him hatzlocha. Because it says ve'ahavta lira'ach kemוך. That's what the Ramban says is afloga. And it doesn't say ve'ahavta es re'acha kemוך. However, by ger, tiktek hakosuv, lichtoi, v'ahavta mesager. So it means that the avo of a ger means that you love the ger. Okay? And that's why the Rambam doesn't mention here he doesn't mention lirtzos, because the mitzvah is not to lirtzos, but the mitzvah is to love, the same as the mitzvah to love God. It doesn't mean that the love of God and the love of the ger are the same. But it means that the mitzvah is es and not le. Now, I just want to say something. Okay? Someone will come and ask me, the same way it's afloga, you can't love every single Jew. How can you love every single ger? So I'm not sure about this, but a priori, I would say that the mitzvah is not to love the individual because of his individual qualities, but to love that the individual who is nichnas tachas kanfei hashchina, of the love the him as a person who gave up his life and his whole everything that he stood for and threw it away and embraced the Shekhinah. And we love that. I'm not sure if it's a love of the individual or love of that aspect of the individual, which he was nichlas tachas kanfei hashchina. And it's not because of his personal character, personal traits. So I can imagine that there's, as the Torah says, v'ahavta mesager. The Rambam adds and goes on, and he says, "K'moi she'osa bi'azhoras b'azhora b'eino osoi she'oma v'leiseinu ishes amisoi v'oma v'ger leiseinu." The relationship, what's going on to oino to after k'moi is very difficult, and this is not the place to talk about it. Mitzvah Shem, we'll discuss it in the Ashov or Noas Hager. However, the Rambam gives an answer to this question in Minyan HaMitzvos and Loisaseh Reish Nun Beis. He shis hilnu mehoinis Hager b'dvorim gam kein. He says, "Ubesifro shaloi toima loi emesh ho yisa oived avodah zara v'achshav nichnesses tachas kanfei hashchina." So it's an oino on the etzem geirus. It's not a personal oino that you ma'ane him personally, so you ma'ane a ger. No, it's the oino of the ger as a ger that is nichnas kanfei hashchina. That's what he learns in Sefer Mitzvahs. Whether it's true in Mishnah Torah and how it plays itself out, that's a different issue. The Ram quotes a pasuk, "V'ahavta mesager." Why does the Rambam quote the pasuk in Parshas Ekev and not the pasuk in Parshas Kedoshim, which is before? So the answer is very simple, because there it says, "Ke'ezach mikem, yi elochem ager, agor itchem." It's first of all, it's trying to equate the ger to you, and here really the mitzvah is vivait, that it's more than you, and it says v'hafto loy kamoicha. So you're missing a reason, the whole reason to make it a separate mitzvah. It's not v'haftem es ager, but so that would not be a separate mitzvah. And those are two reasons. First of all, Ke'ezrach, he's saying it's the same. Right? Number one, he's saying it's the same, which we want to say it's different. And secondly, it's v'hafta lo kamoicha, not v'hafta mesagir. Now, just one more thing, Lineda, here. The Rambam seems to limit it to a ger, who ger tzedek. The chinuch and all the svaras that it's the Hashem nichnas kamfrat shina l'chayra is only by a ger tzedek. The chinuch says a svara that applies even to a place the person should live makom. The Chofetz Chaim thinks that the chinuch is something serious, and the Minchas Chinuch says it's derech musa. All I just want to say, there's something to say for the chinuch, because the Torah says ki ger hoyisa be'eretz Mitzrayim. What type of explanation? What is ger hoyisa be'eretz Mitzrayim? Ger means a sojourner. You were shleib b'mekayimai. But if it's a question of gerus and nichas kachas comes their shechina, the explanation of ki ger hoyisa be'eretz Mitzrayim, it doesn't hold much water. Mitzvah Shem. Just again, Yehi Zichor Baruch Shmuel Halevi.